Hello, everybody, and welcome to PHP Live. This is a session for physical health practitioners, whether you're athletic therapist like myself, strength coach, kinesiologist, physiotherapist, chiropractor, osteopath, personal trainer. If you are in a business of helping people with their physical health, you're part of a community. You're part of a community that cares about the community around them. You've, at least in part, dedicated your time to helping people. And, that is very much appreciated by a lot of people around the world are doing better because of the work we do. My goal with PHP Live is to have an open discussion about our business and about how we can help each other make our businesses better, how we can help more people. And really at the stage that I'm at, so I've been an athletic therapist, strength coach for almost 30 years, is to now get our industry up to the next level. And I have a ton of colleagues that they're really up there now. They're into the science of everything. Their knowledge level far exceeds what any of our expectations were going into this. All of our desire was just to help people as much as possible. A lot of people I know, they're into the high performance, but it's not all about high performance. It's not all about winning. It's, in the end of the day, it's about how many people we can help, how we can improve global health, and what we can do to help each other build great businesses have this industry thrive and move, as the next generation of PHPs comes through, run high quality businesses that are satisfying, spiritually satisfying, financially satisfying, lifestyle wise. I think what we do is very important for the world. And, I want to have discussions with all of you out there about maybe how I can help you build your business. If you want to contribute to helping others, and we want to have open discussions about things every time we do one of these sessions. I'm trying to do them every week or every second week. And if you're seeing this recorded, best place to check to see when the next PHP Live is usually on my LinkedIn page. That's just a great place to see what's going on and get involved. That being said, I'm flying solo today. I'm not hugely adept with all of this stuff, although I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions or whatever, then feel free. And if you have something to contribute, then I can pass it on to the people watching. So I open these sessions with a subject. So whatever it is that is on my agenda for the day, or something that's come up over time. And the thing that I've been talking a lot about lately, we have a new company that we're launching that is in the space of helping physical health practitioners be more scientific about their tracking and reporting and motivating clients to, in particular, strength train. So there's a lot of talk in our industry now about how important strength training is, and obviously cardiovascular training as well. But what's really interesting is, over the many years that I've been doing this, we've evolved all these practices where really scientifically and at the right frequency, we're measuring things that are going on. So we're measuring sleep and hydration and cardiovascular training and heart rate variation and all these. We can measure all kinds of stuff now, and we're putting it in the hands of the end user so that it motivates them on a more regular basis to upkeep their things. So like one of the earliest programs being the 10,000 steps program. 10,000 steps program was great, whether it was exactly accurate or not. It got people moving more. And the whole idea is if you 10,000 steps in a day, then, you're bringing your health level up. What is interesting is, despite the huge focus on how important strength training is, our ability to track and motivate clients to do this, to strength train on a regular basis, has not been very successful. It's changed a little bit, but in my many years of practice, the percentages haven't changed a lot, especially adherence to strength training. So, the national average in North America is the average in North America is that people that are prescribed exercises by a physio, they do about 35% of those. And in the fitness world, in studies where people have signed up for studies, they know they're signing up for a study, a full 46% of the people in the first 3 months have abandoned the study, have abandoned the practices. And, fast forward to the end of the year, and the amount of people that have actually stuck to the program is very, very low, in the single digit percentages. Now, that's not surprising to us because, let's be honest, we all know the gym surge in the first 3 weeks of January. And people really have a hard time sticking to what they're doing. And, they're really trying to keep consistent with their strength training, and it's just not happening. Well, my perspective on this is changed a lot in the last few years because of the project we've been working on. And one of the things that we realized is that the sets and reps are, all the science that we have been engaged in for the last many years has looked at, different sets and repetitions and how that affects the human body and what sort of effects we're getting. The problem with sets and repetitions is that, it requires a certain effort level, and it requires a certain amount of push to failure, obviously. And in scientific settings, we can, if we're doing research study, we can push people. And, there's, I remember talking last year to a few practitioners that are saying, the only successful programs are where people are working with people, so they can push them far enough, push them hard enough, make sure they're working hard enough and stuff like that, because it's hard for people to do. And my perspective on it is the fact that it's not that they need to be supervised necessarily. It's that they need the right metric to motivate them to stick to what they're doing. And why all of these wearables and all of these, metrics that we're following now, and, all the watches that are monitoring sleep and cardiovascular training, volume, and movement and all that sort of stuff, they work because they have some sort of accumulation score and they have a goal. And when we look at mapping people to, when we look at, motivating people to do stuff, you have to set a beginning point, set an end goal, and show frequent milestones in between. And the thing you often hear people talking about, it's like if we were primates and you're walking through a field and you see at a far end of the field there's some sort of food there. So naturally, oh wow, that's good, and you get a shot of dopamine for noticing it. And then as you start running towards it and you look up once in a while and you see that potential source of food is approaching, getting closer, every time your body perceives that, it's a shot of dopamine. And it's the same thing. It's why all of these accumulation scores work. It's why, those closing circles of activity work, is because as you see that progress, as you notice, that it's a quarter done, or even a little bit of movement in there, it's encouraging you by releasing dopamine in your system. And for the most part, we just don't have this with strength training. And so we started working on this a couple of years ago to come up with a methodology that would solve, actually, it solves way more problems than we ever thought it would solve. We thought it would solve the scientific problem of, how much volume people are doing, and how do we track more closely people's, ability to generate force, and how much, volume, if we're going to track overtraining and stuff like that. What it turned out, I think the biggest fundamental difference for me that this has made is, and if you've been in this industry for any length of time, babysitting sets and reps becomes, it's not why we got into it. Telling somebody to do one more, counting repetitions, becoming a rep counter, and all that sort of stuff. It's not what we're there for. We're there to provide expertise, whether it's programming, watching a particular biomechanic and cueing somebody in to correct their posture, or whatever it is. We're certainly not there to tell somebody when they've hit the number 12, because, I think most people that were trained can count to 12. But, we can't completely ignore sets and reps either, right? So we just keep on using it and keep on using it. What we actually created, what I work with now, is I've changed my methodology from using sets and reps to prescribe exercise. And I've changed it to going to measured output level. So a measured effort per repetition. And then a repetition window. So somewhere between 6 and 15. I'm not counting. But, if somebody's over, 20 repetitions, or, into the 25, so we've all seen this before. Somebody just, it feels hard, but, they can just keep on going forever. Obviously, this is not going to be enough to stimulate change. So what I do is, when I'm watching people's biomechanics, so I'm very heavy on the education side, educating my clients on making sure that they move properly, they have control of their body, and, under increasing stress is something I often talk about. So in an exercise, whether it's a row or something like that, I'll measure the actual force output. So the Acculate, which is the thing that we've designed here, it's a force dynamometer. It's a force dynamometer on steroids, really, is what it is. With different programming, it obviously does more of what we want to do than just a regular basic force dynamometer. It's better than I've tried to use fish scales and stuff like that in the past, because, let's be honest, force dynamometers are too expensive. We wanted to make sure that we made one that was affordable to use and to use with clients and all that. Anyway, that aside, what we do is we just hook this into the system, whether it's a cable or it's resistance bands, which I use a ton of. And we measure what their ability, how much force they can generate. And I'm watching their biomechanics to make sure I can see the effort level that I'm looking for, the window of, their ability to maintain that posture. And I get a force measurement from that. And so if that force measurement is like 23 pounds, whatever exercise we're doing, let's say they can generate 23 pounds of force. Then this is typically I do it during the assessment phase, but I also do this during the exercise prescription phase. So once I've given them, this is when I'm giving them an exercise program, I set these parameters, say, okay, so every repetition, I want you to, be at or above 23 pounds of force. And then I get them to do a full set. And when they do a full set, it gives me a second reference as to whether I got it right or not. So, if they did like 25 repetitions, well, maybe their per repetition force can be higher. And if it can't, well, then maybe it's just biomechanical problem. They need to practice and practice and practice to hone in those the biomechanics before they start really putting a lot of effort into something. So that could be an indicator, and that's happened. I've had this happen. But if everything is, we're really in the strength training phase and we're trying to build strength, they do their 23 pounds of force per repetition. And, let's say they do 14 repetitions, which, I talk about this a lot. So I already have this math in my head. I'm not a math genius or not figuring this out on the fly. I can tell you that much. It's, comes to 322 pounds of force generated, I think, around there. And, so I tell them, like, for every set, I want you to go to, 3 at or above 322 pounds of force generated per set. And we know that that's in the window of where I want them working. And then from there, what we want, and this is where in the clinical setting, we've been making the mistake of testing them in the clinical setting, giving them exercise program, waiting for them to return in weeks or months, and then testing them again. And what happens with those clients is they'll do their exercises for a little bit. They'll stop doing their exercises or do them much less frequently. And then when they know the testing's coming, what do? They train a little bit more again. And then they come back and we retest and, oh, it's a little bit better. Well, it's a little bit better because they've lost a whole bunch of training that they haven't done. So once I tell them, we set the parameters of, I want you to do at or above 23, at or above 322. I will write how many sets I want them to do. So let's say I want them to do 4 sets. So that's 1288. It's 1,288 pounds of force generated per workout. Okay. So now this is all recordable. And they can go off on their own, take an Acculate with them, go and train. And I want them to do that program twice a week. And I'm only going to see them in 2 weeks. Typically, my schedule, this is what I do with my clients. They go off, train on their own for a couple of weeks. Then we come back, audit, and move forward, as always. So in that period of time, they should, if they theoretically, if they do all of their workouts, they do their 4 workouts, then they're about just over 5,100 pounds of force generated for all of those workouts if they stick to those parameters and they have no progression. Well, we know the human condition. Once they start into something and they are getting immediate feedback all the time, we have this inherent need or want, and it is dependent on certain people, to push a little harder. So here's what's really cool about what we're seeing happen in these scenarios is, so let's say they improve their one-time force from 23 to 26 pounds. Now, if we're measuring this as clinical practitioners, so as athletic therapists, physio, chiropractor, osteopath, if you're doing manual muscle testing, which is what we were all taught to do, are you going to pick up that strength difference? I highly doubt you'll be able to pick up that. If you feel a slight difference, maybe, but if you're really paying attention. And for the client, it's not going to feel any different. They're not going to notice that. But there is a slight difference there. Well, let's say they go from 23 to 26 pounds and they go from 14 to 15 repetitions. That per set now goes from 322 to 390. This is a very, very incremental improvement that from a numerical point of view, from an objective point of view, now this client is like, oh, I can see the difference now. This is not just a small difference now, 322 to 390. This is a release dopamine moment, right? So hugely important there. Let's move forward with this and look at the per workout. Per workout, we're going from 1280 to over 1500 per workout. There's a dopamine hit there for sure, right? And then if we look at the improvement over 2 weeks, let's say they improve like that and they sustain it for 2 weeks, if the expectation was for them to get to 5,100 pounds of force generated with that one exercise, now we're looking at over 6,200. I mean, this is very, very encouraging for your client. It's also really good for your file. It's proving your work. It allows you to talk to your referral source to show what's going on in an objective manner, not saying, yeah, they're getting better. And, you know, you go on vacation, have a colleague work with your client, they clearly see what's going on. They clearly see what the expectations are, how hard they should be working, what they've been working on. It professionalizes everything that we should be doing. So, you know, I found it really interesting to have a look at that and to be able to hand this to my clients and to see the look on, you know, their faces and the reactions they were having, and, you know, what it actually, the job it took away from me that I, you know, didn't particularly want to do in the first place, was I no longer had to motivate my clients to work harder or work, you know, be consistent with their work, because they could see, you know, the improvement. And when we're measuring like this, imagine you're working with somebody that has an injury, and maybe they're injured on one arm, and you measure all of these things. You measure their one-time effort, you measure their total force generation per set, and then you do the math on all the other stuff. Well, then you measure the good side, and the good side, you take all the same measurements. Does this not now provide you with a starting point, an end goal, and the milestones in between? We start collecting data like that on our clients, athletes, whoever we're working with. Now, when we're in conversations with our referral sources or the coaches we're working with or the parents we're working with, when we're working with young athletes, you know, well, how's the progression? Well, they started here, could generate 300 pounds of force on the injured side and 600 pounds of force on the non-injured side. And now 2 weeks later, they're at 450. And, you know, it's easy to see what that approaching marker is. So this is a huge fundamental change for us that is going to be really, really important. And so it's, you know, I don't know what you guys think. I'd certainly like to hear what your reaction to this is, you know, especially from a PHP's point of view, where, you know, now you no longer have to babysit sets and reps. You don't have to constantly adjust your sets and reps prescription. You can just look at the work they're doing and build on all that work as we go. So it's, you know, I mean, for me, just it's been a game changer for me. And yeah, and I think it's, you tell me what you think. I'd really like to know. This is something we've been working on for a long time. It's not about selling our product. It's not about, you know, do it the way you want to do it. If you have a force dynamometer and you have the capability of especially lending it out to clients and stuff like that, then go for it. But, you know, it seemed like a bit of a leap. I have to be honest with you, at the beginning, it seemed like a bit of a leap. How am I going to change this prescription model? And it took me like a day of just sort of looking at it like, okay, you know, every time I prescribe an exercise, oh yeah, I got to hook my Acculete in, do the one-time force, and then do, you know, you call it work capacity test or force generation test to see how much work they could do. And then instead of writing how many sets and reps we want them to do, it's write your parameters, how many sets, and just go off and do that. And I've had clients come back now. When clients come back and they're like, they've done all their work. Yeah, I did all my work. A lot of times they just, like there's either the improvement is so incremental that they aren't that super excited about it. When because we're in a prototype phase, so we have these Acculeates and we're handing them out to clients to be able to test them out and try out the new system. And when they come back and I've had clients come back and say, like, I have never worked this hard. Of all the exercises I've been prescribed before, I've never worked this hard because I never had the number that I knew that I needed to attain. So it's huge. It's really been a great change. And I think it's a change that our industry really needs. So imagine this now. So especially if you're working with resistance bands or cables and stuff like that, and cables can be they're extremely variable from what the plate load stack says or all that sort of, unless you can afford like a Cybex machine or something like that. These things are crazy expensive. But we're doing all these dynamic trainings with like resistance bands off to the side, around knees, shoulders, arms, whatever. Imagine you can measure all that. You can measure all of that, whether it's a sustained amount of force, somebody standing in a position where they can hold against a resistance band pulling this way and train their core stability, train hip dissociation, train all of these types of things, but with numbers, always with numbers, and simple. Just, wherever you're hooking up your resistance band, you hook up an Acculate and you just get it displayed right in front of you, how much force they're generating. One of the really remarkable ones that I had a couple of years ago is I do a test. We have a bar that's hooked on one side. So the resistance band, if it's hooked on one side, it's pulling forward, it's called a torque bar. We call it a torque bar because it applies torque to the body. So depending on your hand width, wider your hands are on the bar, the more the torque is happening at the body. And this person had real rib instability and had issues. And prior to having what we had created with the Acculate, I knew she had instability because when I did my torque test, which is a great test, by the way. Anyway, you can ask me about it later. But when I did my torque test, I noticed that under very low load, her ability to keep her rib cage facing the same direction as her pelvis was very difficult for her to be able to maintain that. So with an Acculate, so the first time she trained, we didn't have them. We were just getting the prototypes. And so I'd given her the exercise. She did it a few times. She came back. Yeah, I think I'm getting better. We knew it was a neurological drill, so it was wasn't about like building strength. It was about her ability to fix her posture and control her thoracic spine. And so I was like, okay, well, cool. We got our Acculates in, and let's just measure what's going on. So I just set her up with a bar and had her slowly creep backwards until I could see that she could no longer hold her rib cage straight. And then we'd back it off a little bit until she was just at the point where she could, manage her thoracic spine, and she felt the work in her thoracic spine. And the amount of force that she could withstand was 4 pounds. 4 pounds of force. And I was like, whoa. If this is an improvement, this is very, very low. This is very unstable. Let's just check the other side. I want to see what's going on the other side. So a few years prior to that, she had the rib instability problem and had rib pain and all that sort of stuff. And so when we checked the other side, her ability to counter that torque force was 8 pounds. And I was like, wow, both are incredibly low. But when we talk about imbalances being part of the true problem with a lot of people, a lot of the issues that we see, imbalances are often worse than, systemic immobility, not immobility, but like if you decrease flexibility systemically is better than something that is completely imbalanced, where there's strength or and tightness on one side and lack of strength and looseness on another. Well, in her case, they're 100% different. They're both very, very low, but they're also 100% different. So we set to correcting this, and me displaying to her what those numbers were was impactful. If even as a person who's not an expert in the industry, she understood that this was obviously not strong enough and needed to be worked on. And from there, got to work to correcting this and could see very incremental changes over time, going from 4 to 5 to 6 pounds. These were improvements that I never would have picked up if I was continued to do manual muscle testing, especially for something like this. So anyway, a little bit of insight there just to see how this methodology of this new prescription model for how we're prescribing exercises can be a real game changer for a lot of you out there. I know it's been a game changer for me, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this. So anyway, I've been babbling for a long time here, almost half an hour. So the idea of these is to keep them short, and if you have any questions, the chat's open, and or if you have any comments, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. If you're seeing this after the fact, or you're seeing this somewhere else after the fact, I'd love to hear your comments on any of this stuff, and how you're motivating your clients to stick to their strength training programs, and how you're simplifying that process and taking yourself out of the job. You don't. It's great to be the source of inspiration for our clients. It is deadly to be the source of motivation for our clients, because if they move, you move, things change, things happen, the whole thing falls apart. So, be the inspiration for your clients. Don't be the source of motivation. I'd love to hear what you guys are doing, and give me a shout anytime. Contribute to the growth of our industry. Bring us to the next level, and we can all do this together.